have always been fascinated by volcanoes, and visiting East Java in Indonesia has been on my bucket list for a long time. But there was more to see. After arriving in Yogyakarta, I first wanted to visit the large ancient temples of Borobudur and Prambanan, followed by a train ride to Trowulan, another less well-known archaeological site, before continuing to Malang, a regional city just shy of 1 million people. Next were a number of waterfalls, with the most stunning one being Tumpak Sewu, and Mount Bromo, one of the most photographed sunrise over volcanoes locations in the world. A visit to Mount Ijen to see the unique blue fire was meant to be the final highlight of the trip. My first stop was Alun Plaza in Yogyakarta, where vehicles having reached the end of their useful life are transformed into lit-up decorative cars that you can rent and pedal around the square. Early next morning, I watched the sunset over Borobudur, the world's largest Buddhist temple. It was built in the 9th century and abandoned a few hundred years later, lying hidden for centuries under layers of volcanic ash and jungle growth. Beginning of the 19th century, when Java was under British and not Dutch rule for a short time, excavation started, and it is now Indonesia's most visited sightseeing attraction. In Bahasa, Indonesia's main language, ancient temples are referred to as candis. Candi Borobudur is located with 2 other temples on a straight line, one of which is Candi Mendut. All of them are adorned with intricate stone carvings. Prambanan, around an hour's drive away, is the second largest Hindu temple in Southeast Asia after Angkor Wat, and I found it no less impressive. Similar to Candi Borobudur, it was constructed in the 9th century and then abandoned around 200 years later. It was first mentioned in Dutch descriptions in the 1700s as mountains of stones. To the massive scale and sheer numbers of temples, the efforts at restoration in Prambanan still continue up to this day, although shrines are only rebuilt if at least 75% of the original masonry are available. Candi Sewu and Candi Plausan, part of the Prambanan complex, were Buddhist temples, testament to some of the ancient Javan kingdoms accommodating both Buddhist and Hindu beliefs. Trowulan is several hours by train away and it only sees a trickle of visitors. Most likely it was the capital city of a 14th century kingdom and few structures remain. The most notable ones are Chandi Brahu, according to popular folk belief a mortuary shrine, and the recently restored gateway of Bajang Ratu. On the way to the waterfalls in the south, Malang made for a convenient stop and also for a fun one. A few years ago, the slum area of Jodhpur was to be demolished when the locals came up with the idea to give the area a splash of paint to attract visitors. It did work, and Jodhpur is now known as the Rainbow Village. Tumpak Sewu loosely translates into 1,000 waterfalls and can be seen from above and below. The latter requires a wet climb down into a box canyon and a few river crossings that left me and my drone completely soaked. It was time for volcano action. Together with a lot of other tourists, I viewed the sunrise over Mount Bromo and Mount Semeru, both fairly active, emitting smoke and plumes of ash. After sunrise, I hiked over the ash plain to climb to the crater ridge, where the low rumbling sound coming from the caldera of Mount Bromo is very audible and the views are impressive. final stop on my trip to East Java was Mount Ijen, another active volcano. Again, I was not alone in my pursuit to climb into Ijen's crater, one of only 2 sites globally where you can reliably see the so-called blue fire. The climb was an easy stroll, although some people preferred to be pulled up in a cart. While many people call it blue lava, the blue fire is actually the result of ignited sulfuric gas, which emerges from cracks at high temperatures. Alongside the blue fire, volcanic gases are channeled through a network of pipes, resulting in condensation of molten sulfur, which is mined by workers who break it into pieces. The gases are intense and affect both breathing and eyesight, and I was wearing a gas mask, as these days do most but not all miners. Getting brighter, I could see the 1 kilometer wide crater lake, which is recognized as the largest highly acidic crater lake in the world. And acidic it is, with an incredible pH of between 0.1 and 0.5, the same as the readout for battery acid. Thus, the water is definitely not to be touched. Before the sun hits the crater and makes the heat unbearable, the sulfur miners carry the sulfur up to the crater rim in baskets weighing between 75 to 90 kilograms, or 165 to 198 pounds, an enormous effort.
Kadung menyang aja kariat.
From the crater rim, I watched the sun rising above the lake, relishing the view as my trip to East Java was coming to an end. It had been a fascinating visit, but I was already looking forward to the next part of my Indonesian journey, trying to see the world's largest bony fish near Lembongan.